What is up, people? Van from the VaniverseGaming channel here, bringing you another review video. Today's video is my review of Conan Exiles after the Age of Sorcery update that just hit in September of 2022. Since the update, I've put in several hundred hours into the game, and I feel like I'm ready to give you my opinion of the current state of Conan Exiles after the most recent content update. Now, before we get into the review, I wanted to just preface a couple things. First being that I've been playing Conan Exiles since beta. I've put over 1,600 hours into this game, and I actually took a break back in 2020, and so it's been about 2 years since I've played Conan Exiles. So the purpose of this video is to give you a review of the current state of Conan Exiles for a new player who's never played before, or someone who's returning to the game after a very long period of time, similar to myself. So if there's information in this video that has already come out up until this point, there's a good chance it's just because I haven't seen it yet, and I'll try and do my best to point out when the information came with Age of Sorcery update and when the information was already in the game. It's just I haven't played it, and I like it now that I am playing through it. The other thing I want to mention is this is 100% geared towards PC players. If you play on console, I'm not sure everything or anything in this video will apply to you. And also, this is for servers that are PvC servers, PvEC. I did not play on PvP since I've been back with the Sorcery update. And then finally, I played on an official server and it's Exiled Lands only. So I just want to make sure we understand that this is not SIPTA and that it's just for PC users on the Exiled Lands. Okay, now with all of that out of the way, let's get into the actual review of the current state of Conan Exiles today as of making this video. So first things first, when I got into the server selection, I wanted to see if they did any improvements to it, which they did not. So if you're new to the game or you're coming back, just remember that picking the type of server is probably the most important part of your Conan Exiles journey. You can choose to play this game on your C drive, or you can choose to play it online. And if you play it online, you have choices between private servers and official servers and PvP and PvE and blah, blah, blah. So just take some time to really figure out what kind of style of play you want to enjoy in Conan Exiles, and make sure you pick a server or you play on your PC that fits that model. If you do not pick the correct type of server, you might not have the same enjoyable experience as you would if you picked a server or a rule set that fits more of your playstyle. The other thing I noticed is they still haven't fixed a lot of the wonkiness of the server status. Sometimes it shows a bunch of question marks, sometimes it shows really high pings. It never tells you the right level of your character. So just do your best to do the research online, and then once you find a server that makes sense, try and find it in the server search menu and go from there. So once you pick the server you want and you get into the game, nothing really has changed. You pick your character like you always would. Obviously, there's the new religion that I didn't cover before. And other than that, nothing else looks like it's different from when I quit 2 years ago. So once you pick your character and you customize it, it's going to put you in the Exiled Lands similar to what it used to do. And basically, you're in the desert in one of 6 different paths. And your goal is to make your way towards the middle of the map where you can get water and start figuring out what to do from there. So as you progress in and you start to gain attribute points from leveling up, and you start to gain some of your knowledge points, this is where the Age of Sorcery update has really started to take effect. So one thing that I noticed that I really do like is they restructured the attribute points. So in the previously, there was a whole separate one for using the bow, and now they've pretty much streamlined it to where your options are strength, agility, vitality, authority, grit, and what's the other one? Expertise. And so they kind of renamed some of them. And also what they did was now every level is equivalent to 1 attribute point. And after you get to 5 attribute points, you start to unlock custom perks. So they completely redid the perks. And then when you get to 10 levels or 20 levels within a specific perk, you then have the ability to choose between 2 different options. So if you were in strength and you put 10 points into strength, once you put your 10th point in, you can choose between 2 different perks. This is really cool because now it doesn't feel so linear. You can kind of customize it, and you have this option for every one of your stats. So you can do it for agility, vitality, etc. Now, also what they did with the change to the attribute points is now your weapons and your armor are now based on the actual stat. So for instance, there is no longer, every weapon is either going to be an agility weapon or a strength weapon. If it's a strength weapon, it's going to be based off of your strength stat. If it's an agility weapon, it's going to be based off of your agility stat. So things like bows and spears and those types of things, not spears, but javelins, those are going to be off of agility. Daggers are going to be agility, but then you have all your strength weapons. So it's really nice because now you don't have to worry about, oh, I want to be a bow user, so I got to put some into grit, some into agility, some into archery or accuracy or whatever it was called. It allows you to get a little bit more honed in on the builds that you're making. And then having the choices between different perks at the levels 10 and 20 in each of the different attributes is really nice because you can customize to the type of character that you want. Now, the addition of the authority tree is really nice because a lot of people complain that the thralls in Conan Exiles are too strong and that you want to be the center of fighting, right? I don't want my thrall to just sit there and kill everything and me sit back and do nothing. And then there are other people that say, well, I can't do some of the content without a strong thrall. So the authority attribute kind of gives you that ability that you can put points in to make your thralls stronger so they can be kind of what they were before. But just note that they have drastically changed how thralls work, and thralls of old are not nearly as strong as they once used to be. They're strong, they're just not as strong as they once used to be. And if you don't put points into authority, they're even weaker than they were before. The other thing is expertise kind of changed. It just changed the name of survival. It functions very much like survival did. They just kind of changed the name. Now, on top of changing the attribute points and the perks, they also changed how the knowledge points work and what you do when you get your crafting hammer. So when you pick up your crafting hammer, previously you had everything in your inventory. So when you tabbed into your inventory, a lot of your crafting recipes you made right there in your bag, and you could make it through that. They moved a lot of those crafting recipes that used to be in your bag to a crafting hammer. Now, when you have your crafting hammer out, you can now craft multiple things from building pieces to benches to decorations, but it's all now on a crafting hammer, and it's in different sections. They have a building piece section, they have a decoration section, they have a stations and crafting section. And then once you get into some of that, each one of those, you can go down into sorcery and you can go down into companion. And so they did a really nice job of breaking it out. But I can tell you it's very hard to get used to if you've played Conan Exiles for a long period of time and you're coming back to the game. Reason being is a lot of the stuff you don't know where it is. So when you pick up the knowledge in your knowledge points, you want to read after you actually learn it where you craft it. Do you craft it on a station? Do you craft it with a crafting hammer? Or do you just make it right out of your inventory? Because what you could make out of your inventory has drastically changed, and so it's a lot different when it looks. You'll get used to it, but at first it's a little hard to get used to the structure. The other cool thing that they did is with the building changes with the crafting hammer is before, if you accidentally misplaced something and then you clicked on it and destroyed it, you didn't get all the mats back. Now, if you build something and then you destroy it, you get all the mats back for what you built. So it makes it so much easier to build and build and build and then destroy everything if you make mistakes and rebuild because you're not losing those materials. So that was a really nice change that they had along with the crafting hammer, which I thought was really cool. In addition, they did add a mode, which is a special mode that you can do if you're on your own server or if you're a server admin, where it gets rid of durability. Stability. So right now, if you were to build a building, you have a foundation, and once you build on that foundation, you can only go so far out. Once you get so far away from a foundation, it starts changing colors from green to yellow to red on your building pieces. And that's basically saying that your stability is getting worse and worse, and then eventually you won't be able to build because you're too far away. With this current version, which is like whatever cosmetic view, I don't even know what they call the silly view, but it's a way to change it to where you have no stability, so you can just build whatever you want. It's like vanity view, where you just build whatever you want and not have to worry about stability. But you can't do that on official servers. This is on PC. So just right out of the gate, how they change the attribute system, the perk system, and the crafting hammer, and how the crafting graphic user interface works when you have the hammer is all super, super good. Once you kind of get into that and you build that, then you get into the combat of the game. One of the other things that I've noticed in the combat of the game is they've also changed on how your armor and your weapons affect your damage. Before, if you had a weapon or an armor, it would say +5 strength. Now it says plus 6% strength weapon damage. So now they've made it to where it doesn't increase your attribute. Instead, it just increases the damage you do when you're using a weapon that is of that attribute. So if you're using an axe and the axe gives you 6.25% additional strength weapon damage, and you have all your points in strength, you're going to do more damage with that axe versus if you were using daggers and you had all your points in strength, and daggers are agility weapons. That was really cool. I like that change. In addition, they have now made it to where, and this is something that probably didn't come out with Age of Sorcery, I think it was out there before then, is your stamina runs out much faster when you're doing heavy attacks. And in addition, what I also like is the way that healing works. Before, when I was playing a couple years ago, before SIPTA came out, you ate food and it just healed you right back. Like, as long as you were out of combat, you could heal super fast. Now, you're relying on wraps and you're relying on potions to heal you. But they've given you the ability to craft potions and wraps at a super early time with just basic materials. And so you always can just craft in your bag healing potions and wraps. You don't have to worry about making them at a bench or anything like that, which I think is a huge improvement to the game, because now everything is more risky. When you go to fight something, you're not going to be able to heal right away, so you're going to have to figure out, how do I get away in time to bandage or heal, and you have to be a little bit more worried about just running past everything. Because also what I've noticed in combat is things stay aggro to you longer. Before, when you were in combat, you used to be able to run away from everything, and they would stop chasing you after a short period of time. Now, they continue to chase you for a very long period of time, and in addition, sprinting uses way more stamina than it used to. So before, you could sprint for a very long time, you could stop sprinting for a few minutes before your stamina ran out, and then it would just go right to full, and you could sprint again, and you could always stay ahead of them. Now, they seem to catch up to you faster. They can hit you and slow you down. So running away from enemies isn't as easy as it once was previously, which I love. So the ability to not run away is easy. The ability to run out of stamina quicker, and then having to use healing instead of just your food, it has really improved the combat of the game to make it a little bit more, your build is a little bit more important now than it used to be, and just how your gear is and just how you attack mobs. When I first started, I could run all the way to the end game with just 2 stone daggers, and I could beat everything pretty easily without having to do a lot of upgrades. And now I feel like, 2 stone daggers trying to go up to, the mound of the dead, I'm going to get my face kicked in. So they just really have done a good job, in my opinion, on that. Now, outside of that, the one problem I still see with combat is, depending on how glitchy the server is or how high the ping is, you still have the rubber banding. You still have where creatures get up and they pretend like they're going to come fight you, but they don't. There's a delay, especially if you're using a bow. If you're super far away and you're shooting them with a bow, the NPCs do not react. And so there's a little bit of cheese with the NPC camps where you can continue to shoot them with a bow from a super far distance, and they won't react to you, and you can kill them before they even come to you. That needs to be fixed. That's really not fun when you can just peg things from super far away. So that's why picking the right server is really important, because it's going to change how combat is. If the combat is really on and everything is really responsive, and you walk 2 feet into a camp, everybody stands up and comes at you. If it's not super responsive, you can kind of cheat a little bit and pick things off. So just keep that in mind. Depending on the server you're on and just how you play, if you don't cheese, combat is actually very enjoyable in Conan Exiles in its current state than it was previously. I feel like it's more impactful, and I feel like I'm more worried about dying than I ever was when I played Conan Exiles previously. So that's a little bit about the combat. Now let's get into the followers and the thrall changes and how that works. So I do know that people are very upset with some of the changes to the followers and the thralls. In my opinion, the thralls are still strong enough that they do the job, but they're not so strong that they can just decimate everything. So I got to endgame, I had a 20th level Sumerian Berserker Thrall, and even with the authority all the way up, my authority perk all the way up, I only had like 5,000 hit points on him in his full armor. So when you're fighting certain things, he's pretty strong because he, you know, with full armor, full level 20, he's going to do a pretty good job. But even if you run into like Mounds of the Dead and you get like 3 guys on him, he can still get hurt pretty bad and potentially die depending on what you're fighting. So they're not so strong. They can just destroy everything, but they're strong enough that if you put enough points into the authority, that you can still do most of the content and your thrall is going to be the main star. But if you don't put points into authority, they die much, much easier than they did previously. And me personally, I like that. Having a thrall that has 20,000 hit points or whatever ridiculous amount is kind of lame. But I also don't want it to where my thrall doesn't do anything solely because he dies and I just spent so much time leveling it up and now he's dead because of a silly thing. So just keep that in mind, is they did nerf the thralls. The authority attribute is really important to have if you want to have your thrall be kind of the star. But at the same time, I think the changes were not only warranted, I think they were necessary to make Conan Exiles stay more fun from a combat perspective. Alright, so now let's talk a little bit about the crafting benches change and the thralls for crafting benches. So, one thing I noticed that I didn't notice when I played before, and again, this might not have come out with Age of Sorcery, but there are a crap ton of crafting benches. There are so many more crafting benches than there need to be. They have crafting benches for, oh, well, I have one that's going to increase the speed or reduce the cost, and then I have 15 of these, and oh, I added this crafting bench. So just remember, if you're building a crafting floor, there are a crap ton of benches that you need to keep building. What that means is, now that you have more benches, you need more thralls, or you need to keep moving thralls between the benches. Well, with the thralls, another thing that could have already been out before the Age of Sorcery is, now when you get to a tier 4 thrall, well, actually, the tiers don't matter anymore except for on crafting speed. So a tier 1 versus a tier 4, there's no real difference except for the crafting speed. However, depending on the tier, you get special perks from that particular thrall, which I thought were a really nice change. That were probably in before the Age of Sorcery, but I can't confirm that. But for instance, say you get a tier 3 or 4 blacksmith thrall, then instead of making steel reinforcements by adding steel bars and I forget what it is, now you can just take an iron reinforcement that you might have had for your tier 2 and then just add steel bars to it and turn it into a steel reinforcement. So it just makes it a little bit easier to use up some of your materials that you might have had sitting around that you don't use anymore and use them for some of the upgraded type tiers. So I really like how they do that, like with oil, right? If you have a crap ton of bark and I think it's resin or whatever, you can now make oil with it. And so you don't have to do the fishing if you don't want to, depending on what level thrall you have. The other thing is thralls provide different abilities. So depending on what tier 4 thrall you have, you'll see different symbols. One's like a shield with a crack on it. One's like looks like a hammer. One I think looks like a little sword. And when you craft things at a station with those thralls, those symbols indicate that you're going to either increase the durability of it, you're going to increase the damage, or you're going to increase the concussiveness or whatever of it. So just keep that in mind now. It probably was out since Age of Sorcery, but if you're new to the game or you haven't played in a while, just getting a tier 4 thrall is not going to help if you want specific attributes, right? If you're looking to do more damage, you want to start looking for thralls that fit what you're trying to do, either more durability, more damage, etc. So just keep that in mind when you're getting your thralls and you see that little blue icon. But ultimately, I don't know why they created more crafting benches other than now you need more thralls, so you need to farm thralls more so you can fill all your benches, etc., etc. I just think that there's just far too many benches, and I don't know why we decided to add so many. The other thing I wanted to now go into is the meat and potatoes of the Age of Sorcery update is sorcery. So the concept of sorcery as a whole is pretty awesome, right? I get to cast spells in Conan Exiles, and it fits with the lore where I'm not casting fireballs and all that. But when you look at how you learn sorcery and how you level up sorcery, it's fairly okay, right? It's just another grind. I need sorcery scrolls. If I have a tier 3 sorcerer that I can knock out and put on my sorcery bench, then it can help me use some failed scrolls and make them in. It can help me do research. But ultimately, it's very grindy to go around and find scrolls. And then once you find all the scrolls, then what's the point, right? Now you don't really need the scrolls for anything. So you put your book. Well, first you learn it. Once you learn it, then you put your book on your sorcery table. And that's what you're basically upgrading. You're adding stuff into your book. And every time you upgrade your book, your Kunark, or whatever the thing's called, Tome of Kunark or whatever, it opens up new abilities and new spells. So it kind of breaks it into different things. You have summoning type spells. You have actual castable spells. And then you have this other kind of, here's some cool benefits you can do. Now, when you look at sorcery and you look at what you're giving up, I don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze. So some of your casting spells require components. Again, more grind to go make component pouches so you can cast the different tiered spells. Depending on what kind of spell you want to cast, you actually have to have a certain level of corruption. So you have to have 20 or 40% corruption on your bar to even cast the spell. Now, corruption, if you haven't played Conan Exiles before, if you've been back in a while, it reduces your stamina and your health all down equal to your corruption amount. So if you have 50% corruption, you only have half your hit points and half your stamina bar. So it's a huge detriment to run around with a whole bunch of corruption. And to need 40% corruption to cast some of the spells, they should really be worth it. Now, some of the spells are really cool. I might make a video on the spells. But to me, the amount of corruption you need to have in order to cast spells and do some of the stuff, I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze. Now, there is corrupted stats, which we'll get into here in a little bit. But ultimately, after playing through sorcery and seeing what benefit I've gained, there are some really cool things that I think are amazing. My favorite sorcery ability is being able to summon your corpse. I can't tell you how many times I have died in the War Makers or somewhere stupid, volcano, whatever, and now I'm like, oh my god, I gotta run back there. Now, all I have to do is summon my corpse. And so, it's really cool. But like the summoned armor and the summoned weapons, yeah, they're good, but they automatically put you at 50% corruption. The summoned animals, they only last for a little bit of time. They're super cool, but when they blip out, they take everything with them. And then like you can summon a demon. He's really cool, right? You can summon demons, but they don't last. After a while, they'll stop following you and they become an enemy, or they become uncontrollable. So I like the concept. There are some spells and there's some summoning and there's some abilities that I just think are super, super fun. But overall, having to carry a super high level of corruption, I don't know if it's worth doing it. So a lot of times I do my summons, but when it comes to actually walking around and casting spells, I just don't think it's worth it. Now, let's just go into the actual how the corrupted stats work. Now, if you do want to do corruption, once you get to a certain level of corruption, you can then use these souls in order to add corrupted stats. So ultimately, you're going out, you're knocking out a thrall, just like you would to put him on your wheel to break him and make him into a controlled thrall. But instead, you're putting him on a sacrificial table. Then you do this ridiculous animation that takes way too long, and you should be able to cancel out of it. And you get either a blood or a soul essence. If you get a blood, you can turn into a blood vial, and that is used for certain crafting and certain summoning abilities. The soul essences, you get 5 of them when you suck the soul out of a person. You get 5 soul essences, are used to take your stats you currently have and corrupt them. Now, you can only corrupt your strength stats, your vitality stats, and your authority stats. You can't corrupt your agility and your grit, etc. Now, some of the corrupted stats are really cool, and I think they're very beneficial, but also some of the corrupted stats, I just don't think even the corrupted stats are going to save you, right? If things are hitting you for, 100, 200 a hit, and you have half your hit points and half your stamina, the benefits you get from corrupting the stat don't seem to be worth the corruption. Now, I will say the authority and using your thralls and using corruption with your thralls is pretty cool. And I think that you could do a really cool thrall build where you use your corrupted stats and you kind of stay back and shoot stuff with your bows. But getting up in there and fighting, I didn't like a lot of the corrupted stat builds, which I'm sure there's people out there that have more time in this. But ultimately, if I look at sorcery as a whole, I will say that in concept, great. In execution, I think they're doing too much with it. Needing components, needing to have a certain level of corruption, I just don't think it makes the game better, in my opinion. Now, some of the summoning abilities and some of the spells you can do are pretty awesome, and they're fun flavor, but I just don't enjoy how they implemented sorcery as a whole, where I would rather play most of the game without sorcery and only use certain parts of it when I need it, like summoning a corpse, etc., etc. So that is my thing on sorcery. Now let's talk about the armor changes when it comes to how they do with heat and cold. The one thing I really liked is they changed it now where any crafted armor that you make does not have any additional benefits to the hot and cold. So before, if you crafted Nordheimer, it gave you way higher cold resist, and if you crafted the Defari, it gave you much better heat resist. Now it feels like everything you've crafted is that you've learned just by leveling up is all the same, but then you can get legendary items that will help with your heat and cold resistance, and you can find recipes to armors and weapons that will also help. So it almost encourages you to go out and learn recipes in order to be able to do those things, instead of just, oh yeah, well, I'm level 40 now, I can craft Nordheimer, now I can get a really strong cold resist set, and now I can go into the cold resist area. I really felt like legendary items were pretty worthless because everything you could craft came from the bosses, but now some of those legendary items are actually very beneficial and will help you more than I feel like they did previous to the changes to how armor and temperature system work. So I really like how they've now made it to where you can't just have super great temperature resistance without going to explore other recipes or finding legendary items that give you those bonuses. Now, the other thing is when it comes to the armor changes, I already kind of mentioned it, but it's the damage, right? Now you can mix and match the different damage. So some armor gives you plus to health, some armor gives you plus to your armor. You have armor that gives you increased damage, carry capacity. So I really like how they did that, where you can mix and match the different pieces of armor. And then with sorcery now, you have a bench now that can then change it, right? So you can transmog. So now you're like, well, I mixed and maxed my armor for the stats, but I look ridiculous. But I can transmog them to make it look like it's all a certain set of armor, even though they're not. And I really like that addition with the sorcery update as well, is being able to transmog your armor so you can get the stats you're looking for the build you're looking for, but at the same time you don't look like an absolute gamook. So finally, my last part of this review is going to be about challenges and the battle pass. Now, this one I think is the most controversial, and I'll give you my opinion. Challenges in concept make sense. I go out, I complete challenges, and then I unlock cool things. The problem with challenges are they are very repetitive and they're really stupid. And the other challenge or problem with challenges are you can do it with the admin panel on your computer. So at any given time, I can go to my PC, I can turn on my admin panel, and I can just summon stuff in, and I can complete the challenges. Now, they do reset so often, but you can reset them yourself. Also, they do have like a multiplier that happens once in a while. So you can pretty much just keep doing the legendary challenges until you don't have any you like, use your 3 resets, and keep trying to do legendary and rare challenges until you can unlock all the way to the 60 levels of your battle pass. Now the other thing is interesting is there's 2 levels of the battle pass. There is the free version of the battle pass, and there is the standard version of the battle pass, and then there is the premium battle pass. Now, the free version is, if you look at your battle pass, where it says free, that's all you're going to get unless you actually buy a battle pass. So you can do all the challenges you want, but you're only going to get about 12 of the 60 rewards by not having the battle pass. Now, if you pay for the standard battle pass, which is about $10, then it unlocks all of the different options for the battle pass. So as you complete your challenges, you now are unlocking all 60 options. In addition, you gain Crom coins so that if you complete the battle pass, then when the next age comes out, they're supposed to come out like every, 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is, then you'll have enough Crom coins to purchase the next battle pass, which is, I think, is like 1,200 Crom coins. So ultimately, if you pay $10 and you unlock the standard battle pass and you complete all challenges in the time meant, then you'll have enough coins to unlock the next one. So you only really have to pay $10. But there could be a chance you miss it. I don't think there is the way that it's set up because you can do it with the admin panel, but just keep that in mind. The only difference between the standard and the premium battle pass is it just automatically unlocks the first 15 levels for you. And to be honest, the first 15 levels aren't hard with the multiplier, so I don't think it's even worth getting a premium battle pass if the standard's fine. The other thing is they have the bazaar where you can buy items, cosmetic items, with Crom coins. So keep it in mind, if you use the battle pass for $10 and you use up all your Crom coins to buy stuff on the bazaar, then you're not going to have enough Crom coins to pay for the next battle pass. So at the end of the day, I really wish that the battle pass was free. That you could, whether you paid the $10 or not, you can unlock everything just by playing the game, which is what I thought they said when they did the video. And I was sorely mistaken when I realized you only get 12 items if it's free, but you have to buy the battle pass to unlock anything. That seems a little crappy to me. Like, to me, they should give everybody the ability to earn everything that's in the battle pass by playing, and then just give people the ability to purchase it to get it faster. The other thing is they need to prevent the admin panel from allowing you to complete the battle pass. If they did those 2 things, then it would be harder to achieve the battle pass without paying real life money, but it could be possible. And I think more people would be happy with how it's structured. But the way it's structured now, you have to pay $10 in order to even have a chance of unlocking all the items in the battle pass. And the only difference between the standard and the premium is you get the first 15 levels of the pass free of the 60. So again, similar to sorcery and similar to most things that are Funcom related, the idea is great, but I don't like the execution. I think they could have done a better job with it. So that is my review of Conan Exiles. The different pieces that were added, the state of the game, and I want to put it into a nice summary here at the end. In my opinion, Conan Exiles, after the Age of Sorcery update, is in the best state it has ever been since I have been playing in the last 5 years, 6 years, whatever it's been. The changes that they continue to make to the game are improving the game itself. However, they still have a game that continues to be riddled with the same exploits, bugs, server stability, lagginess that has been rampant in this game since the start. So when this game first came out, it was very heavily PvP focused, but they've put so much content into the game now that you can play this as a solo player or as a PvE player and still get a lot out of it. And so that's the one change that I think has really helped Conan Exiles. Previously, if you PvP'd, the game was great, and if you didn't PvP, there was nothing. Now, it feels like the PvPers are the ones who are getting screwed, and now the people who don't PvP can get a lot out of this game and the content that has come out with it. So that is my opinion, is that if you were going to play a game and you liked a MMO type where there's survival elements, but it has a lot of content on getting gear, ability, leveling up, exploration, finding new stuff, there's enough in this game now that you could play this for 100 hours. But at the same time, it's not truly an RPG where there's like a guide and quests and NPCs. You have to create those adventures on your own by finding things to do, and that's where like using the journal steps is a way to do it. That's what helps get you there. Or just having the, okay, today I want to do this, or today I want to try this, etc. So that's the difference. This is such a hybrid game between a survival PvP game and an RPG, MMORPG, that it's a special niche, but you have to figure out what in that niche makes you want to enjoy this game, and you will love this game. But there's so many issues with the game today that will cause people to say, you know what, it's still buggy, it's still a mess, I'm not playing. And it really boils down to what you're looking for and what server you pick on if this game is the right for you. So for all of you out there who have watched my content for 5 years, I left Conan Exiles because I was fed up with everything. I've come back after 2 years, and I can truly say that this game is in the best state that it's been in since I've played, and I've had an absolute blast putting in the last 200 plus hours in the game. So hopefully this review was not too winded and it gave you a lot of information. If you like this review, please give it a like, thumbs up, etc. And make sure to click on the little bell for all my other Conan Exiles content, as well as the other content I have on my channel pertaining to other RPGs and D&D focused type games. This is Van from the VaniverseGaming channel. Cheers and peace out.